Hello, my name is Roger Kibbe, and this is the Bixby 101 talk. We're going to talk about what is Bixby, why you should develop for Bixby, and how to develop for Bixby. A little bit about myself. I'm a senior developer evangelist for Viv Labs, the division of Samsung that is behind the new Bixby or Bixby 2.0. I believe technology should empower and enable, but it should get out of the way. And one of the reasons I'm so very excited about voice, it's the best technology that I've seen that both empowers and enables and gets out of the way. I'm a father of 2 teen daughters. I'm a San Francisco Bay Area native, and I'm a UC Berkeley graduate, so go Bears. So let's jump in and talk about what is Bixby. Bixby is Samsung's conversational AI assistant or voice assistant, and Bixby is embedded in the hundreds of millions of devices that Samsung ships a year. Not just phones, but TVs, smart appliances, watches, and more. All right, let's take a look at a quick video of Bixby in action. Let's do a quick tour of Bixby. Let's start with question of the day. Start question of the day.
Welcome back. Here is today's question of the day. The topic is science. It is worth 4 points. Which species of snake is the fastest in the world, traveling on land at more than 19 kilometers per hour or 12 miles per hour? Choose from the following: A. Eastern brown snake, B. Boa constrictor, C. Black mamba, or D. Forest cobra.
C.
Nicely done. You have earned your first science badge and 4 points. Native to parts of Africa and extremely venomous, the black mamba can travel faster than most humans can run. The good news is that their speed is...
Now let's check the weather. What's the weather like tomorrow?
Tomorrow, you can expect clear skies throughout the day. The high will be 89 degrees at 2:39 p.m., and the low temperature will be 60. To hear the full alert, say what's the alert. To hear more details...
How about having Bixby help me do some yoga? Ask, start stretching for a stretch.
Which of these stretches would you like to do?
Let me choose back bend.
Back bend. While lying on your back, bend your knees and put your feet near your butt. By squeezing your glutes, lift your hips and pelvis off the floor and press them towards the ceiling. I'll tell you.
All right, how about if I want to play some chess? Ask Chess Maven to start a game.
Welcome back to Chess Maven. You are playing as white. If needed, you can always ask for a hint. What piece would you like to proceed with?
Now I'm thinking about going out to dinner. Well, clearly, let's imagine post-COVID thinking about going out to dinner. Find a Thai restaurant in Oakland that takes reservations.
Here are some Thai restaurants that take reservations near Oakland, California.
And I'm going to choose the first one. First one. And I can see Farmhouse Kitchen Thai Cuisine. Sounds great. Make a reservation for 4 people at 8 p.m. this Saturday.
Farmhouse Kitchen Thai Cuisine doesn't take Yelp reservations.
So normally that would work. But because of COVID, all the Yelp reservations are turned off. But you can imagine what would happen. I could make a reservation. All right. Now it's Saturday, getting close to my reservation. Get me an Uber to Farmhouse Thai Kitchen.
An UberX car from Walnut Creek to Farmhouse Kitchen, 710 Florida Street will be between $38 and $45. The closest driver is 10 minutes away. Ready to book your ride.
And I could go ahead and book that ride. That's just a simple demo of some of the things you can do with Bixby. All right, so that was a quick video of some Bixby capabilities. One of the things you may have noticed is Bixby is multimodal. So you can see some screenshots here. There's a mobile device, a refrigerator, a watch, and a television. All of those are multimodal devices. As a matter of fact, all the devices that you can build for Bixby on today are multimodal, and it's fair to say that the majority in the future will be multimodal. So this is something very different about Bixby compared to some of our competitors. So, for instance, Alexa, somewhere around 10 or 15% are multimodal. Google Assistant, yes, there's a lot of phones that are multimodal, but there's an awful lot of use on their smart speakers, which are largely not multimodal. So with Bixby, you're not just building a voice application, but you're building a multimodal application. So when you're designing and developing a Bixby application, you need to think about the fact you're building a voice experience, but there's also a screen there that you can use to augment that voice experience and enhance that voice experience. So, one of the things you can do with Bixby is turn on personalization. It's quite powerful and it's quite easy to do. And the way I like to illustrate this is just give you an example. So let's say I built this train capsule, probably not during the time of COVID, but let's say post-COVID, it was a train schedule capsule. And I could ask it things like, when is the next train from my home station to work? Great for going to work. But at the end of the day, I'm going to ask the opposite. I'm going to say, when is the next train from work to home? Okay, that works well, but I have to vary things. In the morning, I have to ask, when is the next train from home to work? In the evening, I have to next ask, when is the next train from work to home? If I turned on Bixby personalization, after using it a few times, I could just ask Bixby, when is the next train? And the Bixby personalization would be context and location aware and go, he's asking in the morning and he's at home, so he wants the train that's going from home to work. Or, hey, conversely, he's asking in the evening, he's at work, so he wants the train that goes from work to home. So it's incredibly easy to add this personalization to your Bixby capsule, and it just makes your capsule start working better and better and feel more intuitive to your users. Bixby also allows users to personalize their experiences. And I give an example here of personalizing what capsule answers a query. We call this feature natural language categories. But in this case, I'm asking, what's the weather? And Bixby pops up and says, hey, you have two different weather capsules enabled. The weather channel, which is the built-in weather capsule in Bixby, but also I went ahead and enabled Big Sky Weather. So once I've enabled multiple capsules that can answer that, Bixby will ask and say, well, which one do you want to use? And then it will say, hey, which one do you want to be your default? In this case, I chose Big Sky, and I get the weather for Big Sky. And if I subsequently said, after choosing my default, what's the weather like tomorrow? Big Sky would answer. I think you saw that actually in the video. Big Sky was the default weather capsule. Now, I can always change that. That screenshot on the right shows the preferred capsule settings, and I can always change that from Big Sky back over to the weather channel. This is very empowering for a user. A user can decide, when I say this, what capsules should directly answer me. And as a developer, this is very powerful for discovery. As we all know, discovery is very challenging in voice applications. But if an end user enables your capsule and makes it the default, there no longer is discovery because they just ask your capsule in natural language. No dispatch names or invocation names needed. We are strong believers in voice commerce. So Bixby has rich transactional support. We have full support for Samsung Pay. If you're not familiar with Samsung Pay, very similar, and as a matter of fact, compatible with Apple Pay and built into almost all Samsung smartphones. You can leverage that in your Bixby capsule. Or let's say you have a website, you created a capsule, and the users have stored payment credentials. You can just use OAuth to authenticate against your website to get that payment credentials, or indeed for any other API, you can use OAuth. So that's a brief overview of what Bixby is. Let's jump into why you should develop for Bixby. Samsung is embedding Bixby on the over 500 million Bixby-enabled devices Samsung ships per year. Samsung is the world's largest manufacturer of smartphones. We're also the world's largest manufacturer of TVs. We are number one in the US in appliance market share. We're number two in smartwatches globally. Net, there is a vast and enormous ecosystem of devices that are shipped with Bixby on them. And by building a Bixby capsule, you can take advantage of Bixby being embedded on these hundreds of millions of devices that are shipped per year. Level playing field. So what do we mean by this? Well, really, this is a philosophy. And the philosophy is whatever a third-party developer does should be equal to what an internal developer can do. So this comes through in our tooling. So the internal tooling is the exact same as the external tooling. You can go to bixbydevelopers.com, download the Bixby Developer Studio IDE, use that, and that's the exact same tooling that we use internally. So a third-party developer can do anything that an internal developer can do. And then I mentioned those natural language categories. I like to think that as user speech and access to that. If a user sets your capsule as the default, I use that weather example and says, what is the weather? Then what is the weather? That will go directly to your capsule. So there's a level playing field between the built-in capabilities and what a third-party capsule developer can build. This is unique. I think it's a big differentiator for ourselves. It's a ground floor opportunity to get in with Bixby. There are less than 1,000 capsules on the marketplace, and we're shipping on hundreds of millions of devices. Now think about that for a second. So some of our competition has over 100,000 skills in their marketplace. We have less than 1,000 right now. We all know that getting in early on a device into a marketplace is significantly advantageous to a developer. You get some traction, you get your name known. So if you want to get into the Bixby marketplace and get that ground floor opportunity working for you, jump on the opportunity right now. All right, so that's a couple reasons of why you should develop for Bixby. But now let's talk about how to develop for Bixby. So first thing I want to talk about is traditional development is very human-driven. And what do I mean by that? We have this input data, and a developer creates a function. And from that function, then there's an output, and that's computed. So a traditional developer spends a lot of time writing that function, takes that input data, and then the output data is computed. With AI, it's really different. We have our input data, and really that function is essentially learned because the AI crunches over that data and looks for patterns. And in our output, may be known, we have some hypotheses, or it may be discovered. But here's what's different. With AI, that function is really learned by the AI system. It's not written by a developer. With Bixby, when you develop, you get both human development and AI. What does this mean? It means when you're writing a function with Bixby, you don't write that much code. You model Bixby and say, this is how I'd like things to work. And then Bixby writes a bunch of the code for you. So it uses AI to empower developers. What does this mean from a development style? If you're a developer, you probably are used to kind of traditional imperative code-heavy development. In that case, you're really telling the system how to do something. But with Bixby, it's the declarative model-driven environment. What does this mean? It means you spend a lot more time modeling what you want and a lot less time writing traditional code. You can also call it a very opinionated framework. I would say a parallel in the web world is Angular. With Angular, you write a bunch of code to get it to explain to the system how to display that UI. On the other hand, if you've ever used React, it's quite different. With React, you write much less code, and really you're telling it what to display, all right? So there's some parallels between that and Bixby, and why did I bring this up? When you're developing for Bixby, there is a bit of a learning hump. If you've been like a traditional developer, used to that imperative development style, and you have all of a sudden moved to Bixby and you have to start modeling, there's a little bit of a hump. I will say, once you get over that hump, the vast majority of people find this declarative modeling style faster and easier to develop. With Bixby, it's an all-in-one IDE. So you go to bixbydevelopers.com, download the Bixby Developer Studio, and in that studio, you can develop. There's a simulator for all the different Bixby devices. There's a fully featured debugger, and built in is the capability to run unit and function test. So there's a whole testing suite built in, something fairly unique to our platform. And with Bixby, there's no cloud account you need to create. That's all done for you. As a matter of fact, it automatically syncs to the cloud. So you write some code, you can jump straight over the simulator and test that code immediately, because in the background, it synced your code in real time or near real time. Okay, here on the screen are the Bixby components. These are the fundamental building blocks of any Bixby capsule. I'm not going to go through each of these right now, but these are important to understand. And that's why I'm going to point you to this video, the Bixby 101 video, bit.ly/Bixby 101. You can view that video and you'll understand each of these components, how they work together. There's a simple open source capsule that we build, and we show you each of these components and how they all work together. By the way, as you're viewing this, I've already shared all of these slides to both my Twitter and my LinkedIn accounts. So you want these slides, you can jump to follow me on Twitter or follow me on LinkedIn, and you can grab these slides. Okay, we also have something called Bixby templates. These are wizard-driven starter capsules. The whole idea being you don't need to write any code to get something working with Bixby. There's some traditional things like a fax and a quiz and a jokes template. If you have a podcast, we have something really easy. You take your podcast RSS feed, it ingests that and creates a podcast capsule for yourself. And then you can have your own podcast capsule running on Bixby. We also have something called an import and search template. This is pretty interesting. With this template, what you do is you import a CSV, think a spreadsheet file, and then you can use voice to actually query the data that was in that CSV spreadsheet file. Pretty interesting things that can be built here. So these are designed for two purposes. One, as a complete beginner, you can get something working without writing a line of code. But two, even as a more experienced developer, you can use these as a starting point for something more sophisticated you build on Bixby. Voice assistant terminology. So if you've come from one voice assistant and moved to another, one of the things you'll quickly realize is they call the same thing a different name. So I put together this slide to show, hey, for instance, a voice application on Bixby is called a capsule. Alexa calls it a skill. Google Assistant calls it an action. And then I have a bunch of the parts of a voice application in there, and then the corresponding terminology for each of these different platforms. I use this myself because I do some cross-platform development. I think it's highly useful. Bixby on GitHub. On GitHub, we have a ton of open source code, everything from very simple kind of hello world type starter projects to very sophisticated Bixby capsules. We also have in our documentation, we point to GitHub and have some walkthroughs. We also have on YouTube some videos that are tutorials that point to the GitHub code. I want to call out one because it's absolutely my favorite GitHub repo, and it's called the Capsule Samples Collection. Why I think this is so useful, let's say you're reading in the documentation, and there's a particular feature about Bixby. You can jump over to the Capsule Samples Collection, and often there's a sample capsule there that just shows you that one feature in action. So super useful. Read about it in the docs, see it working, and then you can look at the code that actually implemented that feature. Bixby on YouTube, we are really active building tutorials on YouTube. There's a Bixby starter kit that includes that Bixby 101 video that I talked about earlier. We also have a bunch of standalone 5 to 10 minute tutorials that show you how to do everything fairly simple to some intermediate capabilities on Bixby, some hints about going through the approval process. We put up weekly some tech tutorials there, short tutorials. Definitely you want to follow us on YouTube because we create a lot of content there and spend a lot of time, energy, and effort on our YouTube channel. We also have a podcast. I am the host. It is called the Bixby Developers Chat Podcast. I interview people who I think are interesting and are involved in voice. This is designers to developers or just people involved in voice. We talk about how they got their start, what they're doing, what they think about Bixby, but in a broader sense, what do they think about voice? What's the future of voice, etc. BixbyDev.buzzsprout.com. You can go, that's the website. You can also search for it on your favorite podcast player or enable the capsule in Bixby and say, "Hi, Bixby, play Bixby Developers Chat podcast." Bixby on social. So we are very active on Twitter at Bixby Developers. Like I said, we build a lot of this content. We put it on YouTube, etc. We always tweet when we put new content there. So highly helpful to follow us there. We also have a Facebook presence that mirrors very much what we do on Twitter. I want to leave you with a quote. This is a quote from Adam Shire, our co-founder and also the founder of Siri. "We are not trying to build the world's best assistant. We are enabling the world to build the best assistant." What does he mean by that? What it means is, as a company, Viv Labs, we see ourselves as a platform provider. We are building this platform. We will build out some basic voice capabilities on top of it, but we really think the great and amazing voice capabilities and applications will be built by people like you, third-party developers. We're building a platform to empower third-party developers to build the very best voice experiences. I also, a little bit of a call to action. So voice to date has been dominated by smart speakers and maybe to a little lesser extent phones, and that makes a lot of sense. But as you add voice to things like a television or a smart appliance or a watch, it opens up new opportunities and new ways of thinking. I mean, I really like to think about voice on the TV and get very excited about it. And I think a voice experience on a TV with that giant screen could be very, very different than any voice experience that's been built to date on a smart speaker. So I encourage you to think beyond the smart speaker. Think about these new devices, these new ways of interacting with voice that are multimodal, and build really amazing voice experiences on top of these new devices while still building amazing voice experiences on top of the existing devices. All right, if you want to get started with Bixby development, very easy. BixbyDevelopers.com. That is the homepage for everything Bixby. That's where you download the Bixby Developer Studio IDE I talked about. That's where all our documentation is. We have some design guides. We have some code walkthroughs there. Like I said, is your homepage for everything Bixby, and the very first place you should go. All right, just reviewing, BixbyDevelopers.com is our website, GitHub.com/BixbyDevelopers, our YouTube channel, very active there. We have a podcast I'm the host of, at Bixby Developers on Twitter, and you can find us on Facebook. Look, all you need to search for is Bixby Developers on your platform of choice, and you'll probably find us. So I want to say thank you. Once again, my name's Roger Kibbe. I'm a senior technical evangelist for Viv Labs. And as I said, I posted these on my Twitter feed. So you can follow me at Roger Kibbe, or go to LinkedIn, and there's my LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/rkibbe, and you can find this slideshow. And hey, follow me on Twitter. Let's continue the conversation. I love talking about voice. Most importantly, I would love to see the amazing voice applications that you can build. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Stay safe in these very difficult and challenging times.